because I'm Cook Islander and I was the editor of this, I use Cook Island names. So aka is about connection, and that's why we went around to do our things. If we just did it to us, then we're not including you. And educational practice is about being inclusive and collaboration. So we have to practice what we preach. Api'i, to teach and to learn. And once again, it's about giving the opportunity that our learners become the teachers for maybe just a short time, but that's very empowering, and especially in adult literacy. You give the power where a student becomes a teacher and their self-esteem rises, who they are, they feel good about themselves. And so it's very similar to ako, to teach and to learn in terms of Māori. And our last one is aka manako, reflective practice. So anything we do, in life and teaching and work, everything, we should reflect on it. If we do something bad, we repeat it. We change it. If we do something good, then we make comments about, can we improve, all those sort of things. So, and this is based on adult literacy theory. And the guy here behind me is Paulo Freire. Has anyone heard of Paulo Freire? Okay, I can't lie then. So he was a New Zealand-born Cook Islander. No. He's actually Brazilian, and he is noted as the godfather of adult literacy. So a lot of these things he talks about is using the language of your learner, using their cultural background, giving them their own worldview, not the teacher's worldview, and that's why you give them a chance to get up and speak for themselves, and that empowers them. And he talks about action plus reflection equals, okay, I used to be good at maths, but that should be an equal sign, equals praxis. And praxis is about reflecting on your practice and making changes.
Liuni ke tua tuto whakaue kia tōra atua, hako mai kia te tōra ki rea kia pungpung nei. And so in my new way in, I've just said greetings, because we don't just suddenly just jump into a conversation. We start with how we greet each other, and we're talking about connection, we're talking about relationship, and we need to also practice that as we go along. Before I jump into what does the learner actually look like, there's a little bit of context into this question before we get to perhaps how we use and demonstrate what does a Pasifika learner look like. And that context is around the concept in this digital book and also in the hard copy, te lewa. That concept is very, very critical. While it is written in Samoan, all of our Pasifika islands have that concept in their own island way. In Niue, it's called whāloto. There's meaning in Tongan and I'm sure in Cook Islander. But in that concept, there is, it's translated into the space and the space of relationship and creating and nurturing that space. That's why it's very important that we get that concept at the beginning, because that's how you also build and nurture the space that you will create with your own tutor, with your own learner, and with people, with families who actually are a part of the learner that we all work with. So it's not an isolated concept in terms of just being a one-on-one. It is actually a total concept in creating spaces between you, the learner, the learner's family, the learner's community. So that's why it's important to understand that concept first. And when we then move into talking about what does your learner look like, for our space this morning, we're talking about the Samoa learner, we're talking about the Tokelau learner, we're talking about the Taunga learner, the Cook Islands learner, the Kiribati learner, and any of those other learners from our ocean and the Pacific. It is not just a Pacific learner. They come with identities that they are a part of. So we need to look behind just what is the general category of a learner. it is part of knowing who the learner is, and you may be able to use it in your space and in the terms of where you are and what you're doing at your work. I don't think it only relates to the tutor and the student or the learner. I actually think it's how you can adapt it in order to adapt to the families and communities and how they could be involved in creating a positive space for your Pasifika learner. Whakaolahi.
My one is about breaking down the barriers between, it's a written activity, but in my world, which is carpentry, and it's another language in itself, and then my learners, of course, English is their second language, so having the building terminology is crazy. So it's like, you're behind the 8 ball already. So how do I get that in, get that broken down to sort of suit my students? First off, you can't come in there and say, look, exterior wall has to be connected to the truss and make sure the apex is in line with the hip rafter. Cool, be back in 50 minutes. It'll just be stop. I don't know what you're talking about. Doesn't matter if I said it over and over again, it just wouldn't relate. So the whole thing is, who am I? What am I here for? It's just, who are you? So half of it is getting to know me, and breaking down before we even start in the beginning of my course. I actually just tell them who I am. If you sort of split me in half, I'm New Zealand born Samoan, born in Wainyamata, Wellington boy, born and bred. I actually picked up a carpentry in Australia, so I went over Australia and then came back and did my time in New Zealand. That's one half of me. The other half is my Samoan side. Raised in the church, but go to a Bālangi church now. My mother sort of swears by it, chased me come back to church, but I'm still in church. I've got 4 kids. My 1-year-old was screaming at me before I came here. I was going, love you too, son, but I got to go. Working full-time job and what have you. So the whole thing is trying to get them to relate to me. I'm not just here I am, Lema Taotea, qualified builder, blah, blah. You can't relate to me. No, I've got 4 kids. I've got pay bills like everybody else, I'm doing the mahi like everybody else, so, we've got the same grind. And with them, I just want to know a bit of their world, so they break down, where they are in their family, who are their siblings, which is a great way to open up, and it's just little by little. So that is before anything is done. And then, yes, when we get to have a great relationship, and the whole thing about with our learners is building that relationship. I don't know if they, it's a holistic approach. Everybody sort of attacks the head saying, knowledge, you need to get that in there. But half the time you can't get that knowledge in there because you haven't built up that relationship. But it's that, whānau, family type ainga approach, family first, because that's always family first with Pasifika people. So this is the sort of area that people should actually focus in first. Once you get into that relationship and build that trust is a big thing, eh? Trust is a big thing with Polynesian people. They won't do anything until you've earned their trust. And I remember, I went through, what's trust, It's like 3 drivers in trust, sorry about the time. 3 drivers in trust, there was ability. And it's funny, I've built for 25 years, they'll still question whether I can build a house. I can slap a house together in 3 months, easy, but they always look at you and say, well, can you actually do it? Sweet, so we'll have a little hammering competition. Smoke them, easy. Benevolence, and you'll have to Google it because I have to Google it. Benevolence is, do you actually care about me? Do you actually care about my future or where we're going? Will you actually put in the extra time? So the whole thing is like, do you care about what we're going to do here? Of course I do, plus I get paid. The other one is integrity, Will you do what you say you're going to do? It's like, no, I'll do that, sweet, I'll take care of it, and the next day you didn't take care of it. That's where the mistrust comes in. That's when they'll drop it. They'll just drop you stone cold. They won't come back to you. And for you to have that trust broken, it's a lot to get back up. So if you're going to say you're going to do something, no, you're going to be there at a certain time, or you're going to do something, just make sure, unless, all circumstances, something happen, make sure that you never break that trust. And if you get all these things right and you get that trust, it's easy. I don't know why, and we always say, oh, Pasifika people, they're hard to teach. No. A barbecue and, some parties without alcohol, I know I teach my students a little bit differently than most. It's only because I took that time to understand how they wanted to be taught. I didn't go there. I did go there because when I started, they were saying, here's the material and here's how you teach them. Make sure they get through all the assessments. And then I went in and go, here's the assessments, here's the material. Make sure you get through them. And this is exactly how that looked, blank. And then I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll take that back. And then broke it down and said, well, how do you want to be taught? You know what I mean? It was like reflection. I had to go back every day and say, well, that stuff I worked on for like a couple of hours last night, well, that's out the window because, no one engaged with it. And then the next day come out with something. It's the energy that you bring into the room as well. Like you come in with something different, they'll spark up that energy, and it's just an ongoing effect because they want to, especially when I've gained that trust, they want to do it not only for themselves, but they want to sort of do it for the tutor. The tutor's like, oh yeah, Len, great guy, I don't want to disappoint him, so I'm going to be there every day. If I'm not, then I'm going to actually call in. And it's a big thing for them to disrespect the tutor. When I put everything on the line, the last thing they want to do is, disappoint me, so they'll make sure they'll have all their, things sorted at home and ready for the next day because I've gained that trust. So teaching them was all about learning them how they wanted to be taught. And yes, if you look at the way we teach in my construction, we build houses side by side. Guaranteed my house is going to be the loudest and the funniest. This is without any power tools going on. These guys are, sometimes it's like, someone said, Len, can you turn down the stereo? I'm like, what stereo? It's just my guys. But instead of hushing them and curbing their enthusiasm, all I had to do was actually redirect that into the course, into the material. Yep, fun and laughter, let's have happy times, but we still have to do the work at the end of the day. So it was just, channeling their energy so much, they could laugh for 3 hours over nothing, all the energy back into the work. And at the end of the day, it's really not learning. It's just comes natural. It's just a thing that they thought, is this education? Well, why wasn't this taught at school? Obviously, it wasn't at school, but, why wasn't this part of our education when we were growing up? So my whole thing with our digital flipbook is there's a lot of material in here. There's a lot of good resources that we're the converted in here, I can tell, but there's a lot of educators out there still pushing that same old, garbage that they were taught 20 years ago and think, yeah, Māori Pasifika, they're still in the same boat, just keep shoveling this stuff down their throat, they'll do all right. But it won't unless they actually, know us, know the people.
And all these things are actually based on research educational practices. But now we've done our own research. So you might see a woman around walking and she's Dr. Sri Chu, and she's done lots of research for Pacific learners and Māori learners. So we use a lot of her stuff about appreciative pedagogy, and once again, it's just about spending more time at the start to get to know your learner. And once you get that trust from them, then that journey of learning is a lot easier for you and the learner, but you have to put more effort in the front end.